What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. Hope you're all doing very well. We're going to do a little build of the week segment. We're going to have some fun with it. The build I'm going to choose this week is going to be the Ice Fury Shaman. So this is the one that has electrified shocks. We're dumping Stormkeeper. I'm going to talk about this build in this video, show you a little bit of footage, talk about why this is a good build for this particular week in Mythic Plus and why you might want to try it. And the main reason that I'm going to start with is that it is a Tyrannical week. And so it makes it so that your AoE damage is a little bit less important because you're going to spend a lot more time on boss fights. Okay, so this build, for that reason, swaps out Stormkeeper for Ice Fury. Now, the reason that Ice Fury is a little bit better, in my opinion, on these kinds of weeks is because, again, you're spending more time on boss fights. You need to generate Maelstrom on those boss fights, and Ice Fury is really, really good at doing that. It also is a lower cooldown than Stormkeeper. Stormkeeper's got a 1-minute cooldown. Ice Fury's got a 30 seconds. Literally, you get double the amount of Ice Furies that you do Stormkeepers. It generates 25 Maelstrom right off the hop, and then 14... You can see in the total 14 for every Frost Shock afterwards. That's a total of 81 Maelstrom per Ice Fury. So that essentially means every 30 seconds you can generate 81 Maelstrom, which is going to get you a free spender, which in this case is Elemental Blast. We are running Ele Blast for, again, more single target damage. We're also running Aftershock, which is going to help us refresh those Elemental Blasts on single target fights and get us even more damage. And every time we press Elemental Blast, of course, we're going to be resetting our Lava Burst, which helps us to keep the cycle going on Primordial Wave, right? So it all kind of fits together. But yeah, we're swapping out, Surge of Power for Aftershock. We're swapping out Stormkeeper for Ice Fury. And then we're putting a 1-point Elemental Blast instead of putting a point in Echo Chamber. So we're flexing some points around. It helps us build some extra Maelstrom. It helps us get some extra single target damage going. It also is going to keep our Elemental Blast buffs going really long, which is fantastic. You can see in this key here, this is a Ravencrest Manor. That's not what I'm going to show you today, but in this Ravencrest Manor, we had almost 70% uptime on all of our Elemental Blast buffs. You get really high uptime on it because you're able to just keep slinging the Ele Blast on single target, even sometimes on AoE, where Earthquake just isn't quite good enough. That's how this build kind of functions. That's why you might want to take it. This is why we're swapping out things like Stormkeeper, because we're just valuing the Maelstrom here. We're trying to spend as many Elemental Blasts as we can. We're trying to reset with Aftershock as many times as we can and just keep the ball rolling. So the real question you might be asking is like, well, then, Zuko, does this kind of destroy your AoE damage? Is it really bad on AoE damage? And the answer to that, I would say, is no. I think it's actually pretty good on AoE damage. And I'll show you clips of the Blackrock hold that I did here. Now, I will say right off the cuff, I don't think that this build is necessarily going to carry you into like plus 25 keys and above. I think you're probably going to want to stop this build around plus 23, plus 24. I don't think it's going to do super well into 25s, but I have tried it on a 24, and it did okay, but I do think you probably could have done more damage with the Stormkeeper build and with Earthshock, just because the fights last for so long that the value of having things like Stormkeeper on AoE packs, because it lasts for so long, you're probably going to get more value out of that. But I think up to like a 23 or a 24 Mythic Plus key, you could absolutely do this build, and it'll perform perfectly fine for you. So right out of the gates here in the opening packs of this Blackrock hold, you can see we were pumping a lot of damage. The other guys are going to pull ahead of us on this big AoE pack because, again, this build suffers a little bit on mass AoE. It does not have the big Stormkeeper proc going on. We're focusing a little bit more on funneling our damage into one target, or where we have packs like this where it's 4 mobs. That's kind of the perfect number for what we're looking for this build, because our tier set bonus, of course, is going to splash our Lava Bursts to 3 extra targets, or 3 targets, sorry, when we do the Primordial Wave. And then Frost Shock, after you cast Ice Fury, it hits 4 targets in total. So that's really where our damage is going to shine, I think, is when we have sort of less targets than like a huge pull. You don't want a massive pull. So this build wouldn't work quite as well, I don't think, in like an Everbloom where you have lots and lots of enemies that you're fighting at a time. You're pulling, you know, 8 to 10 mobs usually at a time in like these really, really big packs. So it's going to struggle a little bit on that key. But again, that's just for the mass AoE portions. You can see on this pull we pulled almost got close to a stereo there on the Shadow Priest, and that's looking pretty good. So here's a single target. Again, this is Tyrannical week. Very important to keep that in mind. This is the Amalgam of Souls. Not too much going on here, but this is where we're going to get a lot of value out of our Aftershock because we're getting resets on Elemental Blast. I think it already happened a couple times. So watch this. I'm going to fire off an Ele Blast here. Look at my Maelstrom, right? Here comes an Elemental Blast right now. It's going to spend, you can see it's going to spend all my Maelstrom, like half my Maelstrom, sorry. But instead, it refreshes to 150. So that's me getting a reset. And then I go Lava Burst into Elemental Blast number 2. And it looks like it's going to spend half my Maelstrom again. And boom, I get a reset again. I got an Aftershock proc again. So this is the value of that Aftershock in single target. You just keep the ball rolling. It just keeps going over and over again. And you don't really have to stop. You just keep casting a Spender, your Ele Blast into Lava Burst, Ele Blast into Lava Burst, and you're cooling down Primordial Wave. When it comes to single target fights for the Ice Fury portion, you're basically trying to extend your debuff on the enemies for as long as possible. That Electrified Shocks debuff that we talked about right here, this makes enemies take 15% more nature damage from your spells for 9 seconds. So you get 4 Frost Shocks. Each one of those Frost Shocks will put a 9-second debuff on the enemy, so you can keep that debuff rolling. You can see I've been holding my Frost Shocks for a while, and I spend my last Frost Shock at the very end. I had 1 second left. Now the Electrified debuffs, Shocks debuff, sorry, is on the boss for a lot longer. That is going to buff my Flame Shock damage, and it's going to buff my Elemental Blast damage, because Elemental Blast can scales with nature buffs as well. So that's that fight. I'll just move forward here. I'm going to show you. Oh, that's that whole clip. Let's move on to the next video. I'll bring it up here. So the rest of the dungeon, again, there are some AoE moments here, but there isn't like mass AoE. There's mass AoE right here. The spiders is the only real mass AoE in the game. Here I just dropped like my double Liquid Magma Totem, or 1 Liquid Magma Totem, and I just Earthquaked a whole bunch to make sure that these spiders can die. They didn't really have enough health. On a higher key level, this would matter more, but we did get a decent amount of damage just from Earthquaking and dropping Liquid Magma Totem. Then we get up here, I got an Ascendance proc, and I chose to Lava Beam. You're generally not going to Lava Beam too much with this build because you're focusing more on pressing Lava Burst to get Primordial Wave back. That's the main thing. Then we pull up here, and we've got 3-target Cleave, and then the tank Lynx just waits until these guys are basically dead, and then move on to the next pack. You can see we're still doing respectable damage here. Once we move into this next pack, this is kind of going to be a really good amount of enemies for us. So there's 2 enemies here. The next pack has, I think, 4 or 5. 2 plus 4. I think it's 6 enemies in total. That's a pretty good number for us. So our Frost Shocks are going to be hitting 4 enemies, and then our Lava Bursts, we can get up to 6 Flame Shocks, so that's a really good number as well. And you can see right out of the gates we're doing a pretty decent amount of damage. What I really love is having the Ele Blasts that go off, and the Elemental Blasts are really good for funneling down priority targets. You can see on this pull, a priority target is going to be that Arcanist that's casting Arcane Blitz, So we can focus down this Arcanist right here and make sure that it dies really quickly because it's a very annoying mob to kill. And there you can see it died right there. I think we Ele Blasted it to the face. Next pack, you're looking at, all these enemies are really a priority. You should have to make sure you CC them. But I can choose who I want to prioritize here with my Elemental Blast and make sure that I'm doing as much damage as possible. We're not doing a lot of damage right now because I was focusing on crowd controlling them and getting my Flame Shock set up. And then we got a Lava Burst proc there, or an Ascendance proc. But by the time we did, the whole pack was dead. But that's okay. This next pack is something that's really cool. We got a huge proc on this next pack. I think I'll put the volume up here for this. This is really awesome. We get a huge proc here. So we have our Liquid Magma Totem, Flame Shock on the right, and then I Primordial Wave the left. We have Flame Shocks on everybody, and now we're going. Lava Burst time. All right, let's see if we can get some big damage here.
I got first.
Oh, we got a proc! So we got our Primordial Waves. We're sending out meatballs, and then we got a proc on top of it, which was insane. So that's kind of what you can get. That's still what you can get from the build. There's nothing, it's the same baseline build as you have if you're taking Stormkeeper plus Earthshock. We're just replacing that and saying we're going to take Elemental Blast plus we're going to take Ice Fury to help get some priority damage, help get some Maelstrom generation. So you can see the damage is still fine. A lot of the packs in a lot of the dungeons, guys, they're only going to be 4 to 6 mobs in size. So mass AoE is not as important. I think having spells like Ice Fury and the Frost Shocks that are limited to 4 targets, it's not the end of the world because they end up doing actually so much damage to those 4 targets. You can burn those 4 targets down really, really easily, which is awesome. This is another example here. This is 3-target Cleave. This is so perfect for Ele Shaman. 3-target Cleave is like a dream because our Primordial Wave will let us hit 3 targets with our Lava Bursts, and then we can just use Ele Blast. Earthquake just does not get as much value, so you can Ele Blast one of these targets down and just destroy them. Just funnel them down while you're getting the extra Cleave going as well. So it's really, really good for that. Boss fight, here we go. Ravencrest, once again, we're getting some extra single target damage from our Ice Fury Frost Shocks, but mostly we're getting Maelstrom generation from Ice Fury Frost Shocks, and then we're relying on the resets from Aftershock whenever we cast Elemental Blast. That's what we're really relying on, and we're hoping to get as many procs as possible. One really nice thing about this boss fight is that it does have a couple of adds. As soon as you add a couple of adds for Ele Shaman, it just gets really, really insane, right? We get the crazy extra damage here from Primordial Wave. So I Primordial Wave this guy in the back. I have Flame Shocks going, and then we're about to pop off. Watch our damage here. 140k right now, and we're about to go crazy. I can funnel down this Arcanist in front of me. That's the priority target that needs to die. I'm going to cast my Elemental Blasts into that target, and then we're cleaving the rest of our damage. Well, watch how fast the Arcanist dies here. Boom, 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 boom. Ele Blast with the Lava Burst. He just dies like that. So this is the kind of this is what you can kind of do for your group, and I think it's important to recognize that your damage is going to be lackluster, I would say, in mass AoE, but you will have the ability to funnel down to really target down mobs that need to die quickly. Very important mobs that need to die quickly, and that's such an important thing in keys. I've talked about this in other videos, but I can't stress enough. It's good to have like mass AoE classes in your or specs in your Mythic Plus group, like an Unholy DK or even a Boomkin like Rich is playing here, or you know, maybe a BM Hunter that has mass AoE. But having priority damage, like what a Fire Mage can do or what an Ele Shaman can do, in my opinion, that is equally important because there's certain mobs that need to die. So here's a big mass AoE pull. I do have double Liquid Magma Totem. Now, I put my Liquid Magma, my first one back there because I didn't realize he was going to keep pulling like this. So we're getting a lot of damage out right now, but our damage is going to fall off here, again, because we don't have mass AoE. We're still doing pretty good, though. Again, I want to try and highlight that this build isn't completely miserable in mass AoE. It's just not the best it could possibly be. We're not doing 500, 600k. We're only doing, 450 or maybe, 600, 700k. We're doing 500 right now, but it's going to drop off in a minute. That's a really good spike, though. This is what this build is capable of. It's not 600, 700, I guess, if that's what would be the other metric that we're measuring by. But I'm just dropping a crazy amount of Earthquakes. I'm making sure that I get my Frost Shocks in there so that I'm doing the extra AoE as well. Once the amount of mobs gets down to like 4, then you can really start Frost Shocking. I don't get all my Frost Shocks out in time. But you can see that's really good damage there. With a build that doesn't really have mass AoE damage, we were able to pump out a lot there. So that's kind of what you're capable of doing. We do lose damage on the bats here, but again, this is a really cool balance here. So on these pulls, I'm not going to do anywhere near as much damage as Rich is going to do on the Boomkin. Rich's Starfall is just destroying all the bats and his New Moon stuff, right? But I'm funneling down the Fell Frenzy guys. So we're both filling in a different role there, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine. He's going to dominate me on this pack in terms of the overall damage, but that's okay. The bats do need to die, and the Fell Frenzy guys need to die. So I'm taking care of those Fell Frenzy guys. He's focusing a little bit more on mass AoE, smoking all the bats. It's not that he's not doing any damage to the Dominators. I'm sure he is. But if we looked at details, I think, after this dungeon, and I did way more damage to the Dominators. He did way more damage to the bats on this section. But it's okay. It's a comp. It's a DPS comp. It's not just about being the best. It's not just about blasting the most DPS. It's about what your DPS is actually accomplishing. Are we killing the right mobs at the right time? This boss fight is pretty simple. Not much really going on here. I'm just going to skip to the end, I think. We ended up, let me see what we got at the overall here at the end. We ended up catching up a little bit to Serial. He was nuking us, though. Shadow Priest has really, really good damage in general. and Stereo's a good player. So at the very end of the fight, we get within 14k, 15k of him. He's about 15k ahead of us. So here's the last couple of packs. I do end up getting hit here by the stun like an idiot. Before I got hit with the stun, though, I got hit with a tornado. So sad. I was out of that circle. Let's be real. If you don't know the little strat at the top here, you can go stand in a hidey hole. You can see the boomkin over here in the hidey hole. I was just being a risky... I was just having fun down here. But if you stand in the hidey hole, you can get targeted with the big stomp, but they won't actually hit you. So just know that if you're a ranged DPS or a healer, you can go stand in that cubby, and you'll be perfectly safe. We nuke these guys down. Final boss fight. I end up getting kind of unlucky. At the beginning, we get lucky with a couple of procs, I think. Primordial Wave, Lava Burst. Again, here comes an Ele Blast, and we're hoping to get a reset. We didn't get a reset there, but that's okay. We did get a reset right there on Ele Blast, and then we get a proc on Ascendance. We're doing a lot of damage. I don't know how that blade didn't hit me. It hits me there. And then I'm trying to cross here, and I end up getting tagged by this stupid thing that goes in the middle. I don't know why. I'm pretty sure I'm out of it. I'm like totally out of the beam when it goes off. The beam goes off, and then I die. So I don't know. That seemed pretty stupid to me, but it is what it is. Boss gets down. We get to this part. Make sure that you pop your defenses when he does his big shadow bolt. You don't want to lust yet. If you have lust, don't pop it. We couldn't even lust because we were so far ahead on this dungeon. But if you have lust, do not use it. Right now, you want to hold it. And then we are going to get the ring around the rosy here. I end up dying because the bug was on me. Dreadlord's Guile. It's the ring around the rosy thing. You run around in a circle. After you're done doing this run, that's when you pop lust. Okay, you get out of this little ring around the rosy. That's when you want to pop it. Do not pop it before this point. It's a big waste. Okay, now you would use it. We don't have it, so we can't use it. But you can see Stinging Swarm. Oh, that's the thing about Stinging Swarm. We have really good prio damage on Stinging Swarm, so we can like turn and press Ele Blast on this thing and just nuke it down. Watch, this swarm's about to die. Boom, boom, boom. We smoked it for like 400k with an Ele Blast. So that's again a really helpful kind of DPS. Yes, I'm doing less damage on the boss right now, mostly because I died. But I'm doing less damage on the boss. That's fine. But I'm doing a good, like the right kind of damage. That's what you want. You want the right kind of damage. It's very important. I can't talk about this enough. I think people don't understand this concept really enough. They're just like, oh, well, your numbers are lower, so you're worse. It's like, okay, but you're not understanding. There's different pieces of a puzzle here, and you got to bring them together. It's not just about who's doing the top damage at all times, right? There's the damage overall, 244k. We were lower than the other guys, again, probably because we had a little death there, but we were probably just going to be lower anyway. The mass AoE that Rich was able to pump out, and then Asterio is just, better than me. So I think, he's just doing more damage, and Rich is doing more damage on his Boomkin. He's doing lots of damage as well. There's the overall for us. My Lava Burst damage was a little bit low. It needs to be closer to 50% of my overall should be Lava Burst, so I should have casted it more. Ele Blast doing 15%, Flame Shock, Earthquake, Liquid Magma Totem. There's Frost Shock. Just the Frost Shocks themselves are doing 5.5% of our damage. Again, this is not about the damage so much of Frost Shock. It is helping, but it's not really about that. It's more about the Frost Shock putting the Electrified Shocks debuff on enemies so that they're taking more damage from your Flame Shocks, more damage from your Elemental Blast, and it's because of the Maelstrom it generates, which is going to get you back to using those spenders, okay? So that is how the build works in a nutshell. I think I also show my uptime on Ele Blast. Here it is here. My Ele Blast uptime was 70%, 64%, and then the other one was 71%. So that's what you can expect. Because you're doing this build and you're actually manually casting Elemental Blast a lot, not just getting it from your tier set bonus, you're getting way bigger uptime on the buffs from Elemental Blast, which is good. The haste buff, the mastery buff, and the crit buff. So very, very good there. Your stats are going to be enhanced basically at all times. That's the build in a nutshell. That's the build of the week. I think it works really, really well on Tyrannical weeks, guys. This is mostly what I'm talking about. The other affixes don't matter too much, but on Tyrannical weeks, I think this build, if you want to try it out, it actually works very, very well. I will link the the talent tree down below. You can try it out. Please let me know if you have tried it out, what you think about it. I would love to hear your comments down below. I think it's a really fantastic build. It's really fun to play. I think it works in keys up to like a 24 probably. Once you get to a 25, it might be a little bit of a liability, but have fun with it, guys. Please let me know how you have how you do with this build in your keys, and drop a comment down below. Thank you so much again for watching. Love you all. I will see you in the next one.